We are live.
All right, call to order. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jay, would you like to do roll call?
Mia has the notes.
Oh, Mia?
Yeah. Okay, Beth Bruzzone.
Here.
Okay, Scott Foster.
Here.
Brian Levitz.
Here.
Okay, Carolyn Madden. Here. Jill Liffett.
Here.
Okay. Scott Nevin is not here. Jenny Nichols is remote. Is that right?
She's not attending.
Okay, and Abby Gomez.
She may be online, but she's not attending she's online, but she's not attending as a representative.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
So, the consent agenda. I'd like to pull, item A, the November 16th, 2024 minutes. We're going to put that on the regular calendar. And is there, a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you.
Oh, and then a vote. Just,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be roll call.
Okay,
All those in favor?
thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any, the CMAX, are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Jill, do you have any questions or comments
No.
on the consent
No.
calendar? Abby?
No.
Carolyn?
No.
Scott?
Nope.
Brian?
No.
Is there an item to approve the consent agenda and pass the consent agenda?
So you just need a motion and a second.
A motion. Is there a motion?
I so move.
A second.
Passed?
Aye.
And a vote, and a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there anyone opposed to the consent calendar, the consent agenda? No.
Anybody up here?
Does the public have any comments on the consent agenda? Are there any comments online regarding the consent agenda?
We have no hands raised.
Okay. Excellent. For the CMAX, does anyone have a statement of conflict of interest? None?
We're doing a public. So a general public comment?
Not yet.
Linda?
That's going to be after Linda.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Thank you. Do the CMAX have any comments on items not on the agenda? Brian? Do you have any comments on items not on the agenda?
Items not on the agenda. Yes, there is some fruit available back there. So please take some fruit.
What flavor is it?
Well, it's
There's pears,
pears, apples and oranges.
oranges. Is there the bananas still there? Or the
Bananas-
bananas are all gone?
Bananas are gone. So, yes, please take some fruit.
Okay. Jill, do you have any comments on items not on the agenda?
No.
Abby? Carolyn?
No.
Scott? Okay, thank you, do I. And we're going to move on to item 6, Linda, the Supervisor Linda Hopkins. She's going to be via Zoom this evening.
Good evening. So just going to provide, first of all, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So actually we were out, I wanted to share briefly that we were actually out in Bodega Bay earlier today. myself and Che and Tracy Lyons from the 5th District office. And then we also brought along Bert Whitaker, our Director of Regional Parks, and Johannes Hoverts, our Director of Public Infrastructure. And we were there to actually take a visual inspection of a lot of our waterfront that is managed by the county out in Bodega Bay. So we were looking at the seawalls and the breakwaters that protect our harbor infrastructure, as well as the piers. Which leads me to another couple of exciting updates for Bodega Bay. We are working very hard to try to get federal funding for the ice house. And I want to personally thank Dick Ogg, who was able to help organize a group of fishermen. Tony Anello was also there. And we actually hosted Jared Huffman out at the Bodega Bay Yacht Club and then took him on a tour of the ice house. Again, to try to urge him and try to find out how we could support him in achieving federal funding to replace that very aging infrastructure. And just a reminder that with the ice house, it actually uses a refrigerant that is basically banned. No more of that refrigerant is able to be manufactured, and all use has to be phased out by 2030. So it's very old infrastructure that is in dire need of replacement, and we are trying to secure that federal funding to make that happen. We have also been working on the deferred maintenance at Mason's Marina, which is something that the county inherited, and it is in very bad shape. And so we've been kind of gradually replacing the dock infrastructure out there and are looking to invest in infusion of community infrastructure funds to try to leapfrog that project forward. And if you go out on kind of the main dock that then leads out to, you know, the other docks that then protrude into the water, it's completely slanted. It's one of those things, you know, like old farmhouse floors where if you put a marble on one end, you didn't move it, it would just kind of roll down to one corner on its own. So also wanted to mention, because I know that we sustained severe wind damage along the coastline in our, winter storms, that we are working to set aside some additional funding for the chipper program in West County. And there are already actually county funded chipper programs at work. So Che has some additional information on that and can point you in the direction of resources if you'd like. But those are my main updates today for the coast, and let me know if you have any questions.
Do any of the MACs have questions for Supervisor Linda? By the way, thank you very much, Supervisor Hopkins, for your statements.
Can I ask?
Hold on, we're first have to see if the MACs have questions. Anybody here? All right, does the public have any questions of Supervisor Hopkins?
I
Right,
do.
for meeting owl, we'd like you to step up to the podium.
Just a quick question. I just want to know what the estimated price is to replace the ice house.
The interpreters can't.
They can't hear you.
I can
Yeah.
repeat the question if you want. Julianne is asking what the estimated cost is for replacing the ice house.
It is exorbitantly expensive, and it actually depends on what model we get. There is a US model sort of refrigerator unit, and there is one that comes from abroad. And based on the specifications, the building itself may or may not need to be modified. And we're kind of looking at both of those models, and kind of more importantly, the availability and ease of getting parts when, parts are needed, as often happens with something, especially something along the coast that gets wear and tear. But it is in excess of $1 million. Either way. And yeah, so we're trying to, we would love to get like $1.5 million of federal funds. Because the biggest challenge is that, we have an enterprise fund, which is what sort of takes in revenue and then, allocates that revenue to the expenses for our marinas. And so, what we don't want to do is to burden our already struggling fishing community with additional fees to pay something like that for this. So that's why we're really trying to see what we can do to bring in some federal grant funding.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments for Supervisor Hopkins?
Just a quick.
Scott?
Hi, Scott Farmer, Timber Cove. Could you comment on any changes at Permit Sonoma regarding toilets that don't use water, non-flush toilets? Could you update us on that, please?
Yeah, thank you so much. So we have actually approved the use of composting toilets in unincorporated Sonoma County. That said, we may remain constrained by the state rule that says that even if you utilize a composting toilet for the black water from your toilets, actually the water that goes through your kitchen sink is also considered black water. And so that would still need to go into a septic system. And so it doesn't eliminate the need for a septic system, but it actually, reduces the need for the capacity within that system. And I've actually been advocating with Permit Sonoma to try to put together like some simple one-pagers that we could disseminate to the public, because I think what often happens to be handled with Permit Sonoma is that we say something is possible, but it's so convoluted and difficult to actually achieve that, not a lot of folks actually take us up on the opportunity. And so we actually discussed the possibility of a composting toilet for a public toilet facility in Occidental today as well, because we took the department heads on a whirlwind tour of West County. So I'm hoping that maybe some public agencies or some nonprofits might be willing to be our guinea pigs so that we can see how easy it is for them to navigate the Permit Sonoma process in order to move forward with composting toilets. But they are currently permitted. And I believe that there are also inclusions for incinerating toilets and sort of other waterless toilet options.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Laughlin?
Hello, good evening. Just a question.
Your name, real
I'm
quick, your
sorry,
name, please.
John Laughlin, a resident of Bodega Bay. Just a question on reviewing the Board of Supervisors' upcoming agenda. It indicated that the LCP, the Local Coastal Plan, was moved onto the agenda as a consent item. I guess my question is the Local Coastal Plan now available to the full public to read and review? From the county submission, I should say, to be specific, the Sonoma County submission to the Coastal Commission.
That is an excellent question, and I can certainly check in with Tennis Wick and Scott Orr over at Permit Sonoma. I have not received a revised version, short of what was approved by the Board of Supervisors previously.
But my understanding is there was a fair amount of back and forth and some meaningful adjustments. So will the public have an opportunity to review this before the supervisors actually vote or move by consent to accept it?
Absolutely. And I have always asked that anything involving the Local Coastal Plan be posted at a minimum of 1 month prior to the Board of Supervisors votes. I have not seen it on the consent calendar for the upcoming meeting. Or do you have do you know where you heard this?
I believe I saw it online on the the county website. Perhaps I was looking at a future agenda. But thank you. That's useful information. One other question, if I may.
Yes.
Is there any update that you can share? A number of residents are clearly interested, if not concerned, about the planned permitting process with regard to opening the the Estero Americana Preserve owned by the Wildlands. And generally, the question is, where does that process sit? We know that the Planning Commission or the Planning Authority went back with a number of questions. And I'm wondering if you have any insight or update relative to the status of the county's review. That's one question. The second question that's related is the county, the planning department, in their response to the permitting request, indicated that a traffic study would be required. And I am concerned because there is the suggestion, and I do not know if this is fact, but I'm raising it because I've heard it several times now, that a traffic study was in fact conducted by a firm out of San Francisco. And it was done on the Tuesday after Martin Luther King weekend, sort of the middle of the week and one of the worst weather weeks that we've seen in probably the last 2 years. And so my question is, what kind of guidance or requirements for a traffic study would be imposed by the county? It would seem to me that there would need to be multiple measurement periods, like the 4th of July would be a good one, given the standstill traffic that exists here. I'm just terribly concerned if in fact a date was chosen that is as extreme as the 4th of July at the other end, meaning the absolute dearth of traffic. So at any rate, not to monopolize, but those are the two questions. Update on the planning permitting process and an expression of concern that I hope gets conveyed relative to this traffic study, because if it has not been done in a way that is fair and balanced, it would be a real issue, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman.
Great. So just to respond, there is actually, if you go on the County of Sonoma website, a traffic impact study guideline document that is available for download. And if you want to provide us with your email address, you could, give it to Debbie or Che up there. We can follow up and send you a link to that. If you find that inadequate, that's certainly something that we could look at revising. And certainly I would hope, that Permit Sonoma and Public Infrastructure and their reviews would ensure that any traffic impact study was done in compliance with the guidelines. I will say that one of my frustrations is that when traffic counts occur for things like roads funding or active transportation program grants, they often look at midweek to try to get a sense of how much traffic is flowing. And in West County, that just does not work because we are such a visitor focused destination that oftentimes our high traffic are Friday nights, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and Sunday night as folks leave. And so I definitely hear you on that. And it's been a frustration of mine in other avenues, really looking more on the grant funding side. But I think it would be great for us both to dive into that guidelines for traffic impact study document and find out if there's anything inadequate about that. With respect to the Estero Americano, I would need to check in with Permit Sonoma to find out where that is in progress. I do not have a status update to share at this point in time, but again, if you share your email, be happy to look into that and follow up with you.
That's great. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.
Are there any other comments or questions for? Yeah, thank you very much. It's okay. Just come up to the podium, please.
Thank you very much. Very quick question.
First, we need your name.
Carmen Estrada, Bodega Bay, and the question is, maybe you have an update on the local coastal plan status. I know you submitted it to, the county submitted it to the Coastal Commission, and it might have gone back and forth. Any idea where it's at now, and an idea of when it might be heard by the Coastal Commission?
So I actually, and thanks to Debbie for her quick Googling, it's actually going to be on the May 17th agenda for the Board of Supervisors to look at the revisions based on the back and forth between California Coastal Commission and Permit Sonoma staff. So again, I will circle back to Permit Sonoma because it's very important to me that all of you have an opportunity to review that prior to the Board of Supervisors voting on it. So I would hope that it would be public in mid-April in order to make that May 17th sort of estimated timeline on the Board of Supervisors agenda. And if it does not make a mid-April publication, I will ask them to delay that item so that there's at least a month for members of the public to review it. And I think, if the MAC has an interest in reviewing that or having a community meeting after that's published, that is also something that we could consider in terms of timeline.
Thank you very much. There's a tremendous interest in that on the coast, and it'll be very good to see the drafts before they're approved by the Board of Supervisors. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carmen. Supervisor Hopkins, if I may, can we verify that in fact that the May 17th special meeting is for the LCP, that it is a regularly agendized item?
Debbie, do you have information on whether it's currently placed on the consent calendar or on the regular calendar? I would hope it would be on the regular.
It's
Also Truth Act Forum, it's the May 17th special meeting, so it has the local coastal plan update. So I don't think that's the approval. I think maybe
Oh.
Permit Sonoma is coming with an update on the local coastal plan. And then the Truth Act Forum is that night and the Racial Equity Plan Workshop.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Supervisor Hopkins? Oh, yes. Please.
I hate to keep asking, Danny Tibbetts, Big Day. I hate to keep asking the same question over and over, but the special meeting is May 17th, but it does say that it's on the consent item. It's a consent item. So that's means there's no discussion from the public if it's.
And it's not
consent.
a presentation.
Yeah, it's consent. So that's a big concern.
And what,
That's what I read as well.
Yeah,
so one thing that is true is that any single supervisor can pull any consent calendar item off of the consent calendar agenda and have it discussed separately. If this is in fact, does in fact remain on the consent calendar, I will absolutely ask the chair that it be removed from the consent calendar so that people can comment on it separately and then we can have a conversation about it.
and another comment, I was at the last CMAC meeting 2 months ago, and Linda, you gave a great presentation about the LCP. And you also, at that meeting, told us that Permit Sonoma had received quite a bit of changes and questions and comments. And you told us at that meeting that you were going to make sure we got to see that back and forth. And it's now 2 months later and we haven't seen anything. So maybe you can do some little magic so we can see that ASAP. Thank you.
So thank you so much. So folks can confirm that that has not been posted to Permit Sonoma's website as we requested. I have not, I did pass along the request to Permit Sonoma. I did not follow up and make sure that it made it onto the website. I was hoping that would just happen. But I can, so Denny, can you confirm that it's not up, it has not been uploaded up there?
Yes, yes, it has not been uploaded. No,
Okay.
it hasn't.
Thank you for that. I
keep checking.
Thank you, and I apologize for the delay. I will check in with Tennis and Scott on that one.
Are there any other questions for Linda in the audience? Or do we have anyone online that has questions or comments for Supervisor Hopkins?
If you're online and you would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand. There's none at this time.
Okay. Supervisor Hopkins, I do have a question in the discussion about the wildlands property coming up. Are you aware of what the public safety plan is? Or have you had input in that for when the wildlands opens to the public? And have you had an opportunity to talk with the Sonoma County Sheriff and the Sonoma County Fire Department about it?
No, I don't sort of typically get engaged in pending permit applications at sort of this stage, because it is something that can ultimately come before the Board of Supervisors for a vote. And so it's really important to maintain neutrality, since we would in that case be serving in a quasi adjudicatory role, which means that we're basically sitting like judges in an appeals court. And so if we sort of engage too heavily on a project before it gets to the Board of Supervisors, we're actually precluded from voting on it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your report, Supervisor Hopkins. And we'll go on to the staff report.
Yeah. You want to add a little bit more on the chipper program?
Yeah, so as far as the chipper program is concerned, we have pushing through right now some extra funding for the chipper program. Please feel free to reach out to me. I can give you my card after the meeting. But there will be a significant amount more just for the coastal zone because we were hit so hard by those heavy winds. We all have so many trees down. The one thing that I will highlight is when you sign up for the chipper program, please do pay attention to the requirements for how to pile the material because they are, they're moving fast and they need that to be accessible and in that, within the realm of what they require. As far as the section A of the staff report, we are seeking a MAC, we're exploring seeking a MAC clerk role. Cindy previously served in that role, as did Nance Jones. So I don't know if that would be a discussion among the MAC members on thoughts on recruiting a new clerk. We do have someone that's helping to serve right now, but eventually that will be something that we will need. Chair?
I would like to have the MAC, I'd like to have their individual input on their opinion on whether we need a clerk, a secretary to help us out. Jill?
I am not aware of that need, but I haven't been actively involved in needing a clerk or knowing that we need a clerk, so I really have no comment to make because I don't have an informed position on that.
Okay, Abby?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all right.
So,
Yes, please.
so I will say that, when we did have the opportunity to have Cindy Lopazzi, she was very, very helpful. And, she was able to participate on, sort of agenda calls and, so, I mean, I think the advantage that she brought was just a wealth of information from the coast. So if we could get somebody who also like, not necessarily another additional member, but like somebody who would have that ability to sort of understand the coast.
So a potential public at large.
No, I'm not necessarily a member, but like just like somebody who brings in like, while they're writing the minutes, they have an understanding
Okay.
of how, if there's a discussion of some road.
Okay. Carolyn?
So what's the position? What exactly does that person do? Since we haven't had one.
Wait, it's been what, about a year? I think about a year
About
or
a
so. Since Cindy resigned, maybe a little bit more than a year. She took the minutes. She did some of the housekeeping, so to say.
Roll call. kept
Roll
us
call.
honest. Yeah.
Roll call kept us honest. That's exactly right.
It seems like it might be a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Scott?
You go.
Okay, okay. So yes, we definitely would like to look at having a clerk, a secretary of sorts, and we will pursue that.
Yeah, so I'll pursue it on staff end,
Yes.
but I also asked for the MAC to reach out to your folks. If you know anybody with that skill set that would be interested, please do send them my way. I'd also like to make an introduction to, actually, you're a little bit better. You don't like me.
Well, Mia Pedrosetti, she's our
Hi.
intern. She'll be
Hello.
here
It's nice
with
to
us
meet
through
everybody.
May.
So filling in a lot of those roles of clerk, but thank you very much for
Yeah, of course.
all of your hard work and keeping us honest and
Oh,
roll
yes,
call and all of that.
course,
So
I'm honored.
thank you.
Thank you, Che. Mia, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I started with the Board of Supervisors in February. I was hired to work with youth engagement. So I've been working closely with Debbie to put together kind of a crash course in local government to educate youth in the area and sort of, a temperature check on what they're interested in, to best sort of format for them to engage, whatever they're interested in, will provide the means of communication to, department heads in those departments. Yeah.
Need more young people engaged in local government. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Of course.
And I just realized I neglected to have the MAC all introduce themselves and to explain where they're from. Jill?
I'm from Jenner.
You're Jill Lippett and you're from Jenner and, okay.
I'm Abby and I'm representing.
Can't hear you. sorry.
I'm Abby and I'm representing for Kashai Band of Homo Indians and our rancheria is at Stewart's Point.
Thank you. I'm Caroline Madden and I represent Fort Ross, West Casadero area.
Scott Foster, Timber Cove.
Beth Bruzzone, Bodega, Valley Forge Chair.
Brian Lubitz, Bodega Bay.
Past Chair. Thank you. Is there any public comment on the staff report?
There's one other part of the
Yeah.
staff.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, so, we did, send out the community engagement guide, to the MAC. Something that, you know, we need to look at reviving a little bit more of. I know when I was on the MAC, we did a lot of that posting with the local post office, that kind of thing. So, you know, I would like to hear thoughts on the community engagement plan, tweaks, any ideas that you all have, and hopefully, commitment to re-engaging with some of the tools that are in there.
Any thoughts for Che?
Well, I had a question on the chipper program.
Okay, well, so we'll grant, do you want the chipper program now, Che, or do you want just to hear about the community engagement?
Let's finish the community engagement.
Yeah.
So I have a question on that. So this calendar of significant items, is there any way like I can take this and like put it in our newsletter or email newsletter so that the larger community has, I mean,
I'll help you with that.
not everybody is like looking at the county, you know, website or anything, but this might encourage people to.
I will help you with that,
That would be great.
to do that, and, do you have any comments about the community engagement?
No, not
That's,
specific.
okay,
That-
okay, that is part of community engagement though,
Okay.
bringing that along.
Okay.
Scott, do you have, questions about community engagement?
Why are some of these in italics? Are those changes or is that something new? I mean, this is the first time, and it's my first meeting, so I'm not really-
I don't believe so. I think this is, pretty much wrote from what was passed there.
Okay, so
So
those
that may have
aren't
been
changed.
previous changes.
Okay, but this is this the first time this document's been out? I'm
No, this
sorry.
is the original document from 2018.
I think the file date was 2020, but it might have been changed a little
It's
bit
been
between
quite a
18
few
and
years,
20.
and we were supposed to look at this every year and rehash it.
Oh,
So the question is now, do we want to accept this document or do we want to
That,
create an
yeah.
ad hoc?
Real quick, before we make that decision, any other comments on this document? No? Okay.
all right.
So I think it would be valuable to create an ad hoc to go over this and make sure that this document meets the public's needs and Supervisor Hopkins' needs and District 5 staff needs. Can we have a vote on that? Oh, we don't need to do a vote for ad hoc.
I
Excellent.
do need volunteers.
Okay, I would like 3 volunteers, 2 volunteers in addition to myself for the ad hoc. From the CMAC.
And I am getting, we
I think
actually
we
do need a
do.
vote.
We do.
I
Oh,
apologize.
well,
I thought-
okay.
Oh, we do?
I can flex.
Volunteers first, then vote.
Volunteers first, then vote. Do I have volunteers to work? Any of the CMACs want to volunteer to work on the ad hoc committee with myself?
Sure, I'll do it.
Carolyn, anyone else?
I guess we can do this.
There'd only be 3 of us.
What if something-
What if something happens? One of us is no longer a problem,
Sure, I'll
Scott.
do it.
Scott, jumping in, okay.
I'd love to do this.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so it's Carolyn, Scott, and myself for the ad hoc committee.
Thank you.
Can we take a vote?
You want to take public comment?
Oh, I thought it was vote then, okay, great, public comment. About the ad hoc, is there any public comment on the ad hoc committee for community engagement? Okay, anybody online?
Well, maybe the other thing is if anybody else has any ideas or suggestions for ways that the MAC could do better in reaching out to your community, to the communities.
Yeah, let's ask them
Yeah,
while we're all here talking about this.
Sure.
so obviously you all are the ones who heard about this and are showing up. I mean, many of you all I've seen before, so that's nice. does anybody have any suggestions for ways that the MAC could be more relevant, more useful? Scott?
Scott?
Past chair.
Scott Farmer, Timber Cove. From past experience, I think community involvement is often driven by the agenda. If you've got the topics to bring people in and let them know, they'll show up. So, work on the topics.
Thank you.
Thank you. I agree.
Any comments online?
If you'd like to make a public comment, please raise your hand online. There's no public comment.
All right, can we vote?
Well, I will make a motion to pull it up.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
You have to say all of those.
Oh. Anyone opposed? Now it passes. Thank you. Thank you for the help. I need it.
So,
Second time, you're doing great.
Yes,
question, should I come up and ask it?
yes, please.
So if indeed one of us comes up with a really great idea, do we contact one of the three of you to?
Regarding this.
Yeah,
Regarding-
contact the chair,
The chair.
the
About if
chair
we-
or your representative.
Okay,
Yeah.
but if we have an idea about, hey, I'm really worried about this, or this is important, that's what we do.
Oh, so can I?
Yes, please.
So that is, so you always have, if you're in Bodega Bay, you have two representatives, myself and Ginny Nichols, who is unable to be here today. So we're always your point of contact. If you have questions or things you'd like to bring to the MAC, we're always happy, at least I'm always happy to talk about MAC related issues. So feel free to contact me. I post on the Bodega Bay list and Bodega Bay Facebook group, and so feel free to reach out to me directly. And if you like my contact information, get that to you as well. So yeah, in general, if folks have issues they're concerned about, and they'd like to reach out to the MAC or get our assistants to reach out to the District 5 staff, please reach out to your MAC representative. And I think we all are definitely happy to talk and bring issues forward.
But, and then also we have an idea about,
For the communication,
for your community
Yes.
engagement.
Please
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Please reach
Okay.
out.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right. Time to move on to,
Jill had a question.
oh,
I have a
I'm
question.
sorry, Jill.
No, I had the chipper program that you're speaking about. I know that our Monterey Fire Department has a chipper and they're bringing it up to, our woodland properties. And is that the same program or is that a
is
different
distinct
program?
from the chipper program. The chipper program is provided by Permit Sonoma. And they send out a crew with a chipper that chips a certain route. This will obviously be in West County. And they like to batch them. So they take all the applications and then they'll go out to Timber Cove in one day and chip all of the applications in Timber.
So that is separate and apart from the Monterey Fire Department.
is.
which is Also chipping. Okay, thank you. And how do people know they should contact you?
You can contact me after the meeting, or you can go to chipper program at Permit Sonoma. Let me look it up real quick.
yeah, there's a nice little online web form.
Yeah, if you just Google it, it's like the first thing that shows up, but I'm loading slow. Okay, permitsonoma.org/chipper program. Once again, that's permitsonoma.org/chipper program.
It's I've done it a couple of times. It's very nice. You just stack up your big logs or whatever, and you put them right in front of your house, and they just came by and they just chipped it all, and I didn't even know they were here until and then later that day noticed this big pile of chips.
Yeah, no, I've done it too, and it's really
amazing.
appreciated.
Yeah,
But they want it stacked a certain way.
yes,
It's really specific.
yes.
Yeah.
I see parallel.
Yes.
Do the CMAC have any other comments or questions? Right. So I'd like to open the time for comments for items not on
I'd
the
like to
agenda.
ask Jay a question on his.
Go for it.
So, real quick. This TIPper program, there's been misunderstanding about permits required to have to cut brush or something to have it chipped by the county. Could you clarify? Even in the coastal zone, do you require anybody to have permits before they present their chips, or is that just, how do you view that?
If it's in the public right of way along the road, which is usually where the chipper program operates, then the permits and all can operate. We don't know where it came from, so.
You're not looking for proof of permits.
We are not looking for permits. You can simply call the chipper program and they will deal with it if it's in the public right of way.
Follow the guidelines and.
Follow the
everything's
guidelines.
full.
Yeah, the issue would be if they came onto private property.
Got it. Thanks for clarifying that.
Would you clarify, so they will not come onto private property, like, for example, Muniz Ranch Road is not a public road, but we've had chipper programs, I'm not sure who actually.
They'll come onto private roads. I have to clarify for the coastal zone. I know that they can do it in the public right of way. I can follow up for private roads in the coastal zone, what that looks like.
I think they've always have, but just wanted to make sure they haven't created a further restriction.
Yeah, I would ask first and then they will let you know if they can't do it, but I can also follow up with CMAC as well.
Right,
But I would definitely suggest signing up for the program. And if they can't do it, they will let you know.
And the program will operate for the full year?
Until the funds run out, as I understand.
Okay,
So I would get on it before fire season. That's the whole purpose of this program.
right,
Get everything chipped out before fire
Right.
season comes around. For those that are also interested, Pepperwood Preserve does burn pile workshops. So if you're interested in learning how to do a burn pile instead of doing the chipper program, that's another wonderful resource in order to learn how to deal with fuels on your property.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Yes, please.
It's not about chippers.
Are we moving
That's
on
okay.
to public
I'm
comment?
thinking of total
Yeah.
Items not on the agenda.
Items not on the agenda.
Right, I have a question.
Could we have your name and where you
I
live?
just said it, but I'll do it again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tina Podolak, and I have a question about the Estero Americano. And I heard that a porta potty had been put, I don't know if it's true, on the Estero, and that a permit was not pulled or pulled. I haven't been able to figure that out. And during the storms, it blew over. And I just would like to get a clarification of what happened.
Gina,
Thank you.
I'll follow up with you. I do not know about the porta potty, but I'll find out.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, Carmen Estrada, Bodega Harbor. I have a question about defensible space, which is something to do with fire safety. And many of us got a letter from the fire marshal in the last week or two telling us we're subject to chapter 13A, which is an ordinance in Sonoma County. So I understand chapter 13A applies to the local, not the state responsibility area. We on the coast are in the state responsibility area. So are we subject to chapter 13A, question mark? Or is it, what is it? The Public Resources Code 4291, which definitely on the coast we are subject to. They're very similar. It's just that 13A applies inland. I'm happy if 13A applies to us. There's just a few more, bells and whistles that might apply to some commercial areas or people with a lot of property and a lot of trees. So either way, we're very happy that the county is taking this action and going by several neighbors. They're actually trimming their stuff back, their dead and dying trees and trimming stuff. So I think that's terrific. So I was just curious about what the standard was, and I can follow up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not to throw anybody under the bus, but Steve, can you answer that by any chance?
Actually, let me do that. Sorry to answer it. Hi, Steve Hertzberg, Deputy Chief, Sonoma County Fire District, resident of Bodega Bay. What we've asked to do is talk to your chairs to put this as an agenda item for next time so that we don't have to approach it haphazardly. We do have a fire prevention group that will come out and explain it in detail. And Carmen, they've also offered to go to the HOA at one of the board meetings and explain it. Either of those two laws will require those inspections and will require that we create defensible space, and we shouldn't make it a requirement. It should be something we all want to do, and particularly right now, when we're facing fire insurance crises for many people, the idea is to make sure that our community is as fire safe as we can make it, so that our insurance ratings stay pretty favorable, and so that we can make sure that we maintain our ability to get insurance. So with the chair's permission, I don't know if I can ask from the audience, I'd like that to become an agendized item at the next meeting.
Absolutely.
And people from our fire prevention group who will also be doing the inspections will come out and they'll be able to give a much more in-depth answers to what the law covers and how they go about inspecting. And they will do it for the HOA also.
Can we
Thank
turn
you.
on our neighbor?
I'm not getting into that.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chief. Oh, just one moment. Mr. Anello, you had a question. Would you like me to come back there?
No, I'll stand up right here if you don't mind. Fighting that.
It's okay.
Thank you for the help. Just an observation, we noticed here just with the MAC and the Chamber of Commerce and meetings that pertain to the betterment of Bodega Bay area. I'd like just an observation. I don't know how it was set with most people, but I'd like to see the meetings progress a little later. Because some of the businesses closed down, like for instance, ours, we closed down at 5. And in order to clean up and get ready and make a meeting, it's pretty tough. I'd like to see, for some consideration, to have it a little bit later in the day. And it would probably get more participation. And more participation is always better for something like the MAC here. It would work a lot better. That's just a comment that I have.
Thank you very much, Tony. And just so that meeting, I'll pick that up. What Tony Anello was asking is, can we move the meeting to a little bit later in the evening to make it so that more of our community is able to come to the meeting?
Exactly.
So
It's not on the agenda, so.
it's not on that, we can't discuss it, but we can certainly,
Can I make a comment about that?
absolutely.
All right.
Thank you very much, Tony.
Here we are in Bodega Bay again, which is great, beautiful. When we started, we rotated the meetings among all the communities. So one of the issues is that somebody from Sea Ranch has nearly an hour and a half drive each way to get here. So making it later, especially in the winter, is really tough. And we used to have meetings up there. The reverse would be true for you. That's all.
Thank you. We'll definitely take this and play with it and see if we can agendize that.
You know, a half an hour would be a lot.
Yeah. And,
I understand.
and, you know, certainly something we could consider. Okay, so we can't discuss it.
We can't discuss it.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
You and I will talk.
No,
Well,
understood.
you can't make a vote on it today because it wasn't on the agenda.
Right, we can't vote, nor can we
My
leave.
past experience, I know I've been the chair, and I know I currently hold the chair for the advisory board on the marina. But I mean, it's just a comment that you might want to think about putting on.
Absolutely, and I will say that a comment like that coming from Tony Anello carries great substance in this community. So thank you very, very much for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. We have another comment from an item not on the agenda.
Yes, Saeed Rahimi, Bodega Harbor. It's about, just for your information, the fire safety inspections. I called that number that was in that letter this morning, and a gentleman returned my call and told me that they're going to come and visit our area sometime in May or June, and they will be inspecting the properties from the road. That means they said they will not go inside or to the backyard or anything. They will be inspecting the properties that way. It's just a point of information.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments on items not on the agenda?
The one I came for.
Oh, good.
All right. All right, this is regarding Sonoma County Emergency Management, readiness, response, and recovery, potential threats and hazard categories are coronavirus, drought, earthquake, extreme cold, extreme heat, flooding, landslides, power outages, red flag warning, tsunami, wildfire, and current situation, avian influenza. In the past 2 years, we have shown those, in the past 2 winters, have shown to those of us on the North Coast that wind can be amongst the most destructive annual events. Windstorm deserves equal consideration as a potential threat and hazard with appropriate modeling and preparation. Please add windstorm to the potential threats and hazards list on the Sonoma County Emergency Management Emergency Information web list.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Scott. Are there any other comments for the public from items not on the agenda? Yes, please.
Any Tibbetts, one more quick question, with the, all the new parks that are opening, Karen, on the coast and the potential, wildlands that is
Potentially coming on.
potentially, I'm just wondering, like, especially in the summer, if there's going to be, I've got concerns about public safety and traffic. I have to, a lot of times where I live, I have to make a right-hand turn. If I want to go left, I have to make a right-hand turn, drive a ways, and then, so I'm just kind of concerned about traffic and safety with all that's happening and the tourism and just what the county, regional parks, everybody is thinking about.
Thank you. Yes.
So we actually did a study, was it 4 years ago? About the traffic, that in Bodega Bay, Brooks and Kathy led that study. Which actually, I saw it later, it yielded some very interesting information. I would, maybe we can talk about looking at that again, because it is something that just keeps coming up and up and again. Especially, the continual sort of adjustment of traffic patterns since the pandemic and how that's all changed pre and post and pandemic with respect to the sort of the continuing, the weekends, especially in the summer, being the traffic being unmanageable. So, maybe Beth and I will talk about maybe do another ad hoc on that as well.
I think that's a wise idea. Deputy Chief, do you have anything to say on that?
Right in the middle of March Madness, okay. So this topic is really not new to us in any way. What we're really talking about is the carrying capacity of the area. We've had this discussion going for many, many years in different contexts. And so it's not simply traffic, it's not simply public safety, it's not simply hey, we're opening up new areas, can you cover it? Can you make the responses that you want to make? It's much bigger than that. It really is, how does it impact the environment? How does it impact the quality of life? How does it impact all of the different infrastructure parts of it? And I think it's ripe for another discussion. These are not our treasures out here. These are treasures that everyone should be able to share and use. And we have to be careful not to become NIMBYs about some of this property, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we manage that load in a way that doesn't damage the environment, overburden the first responders, make it impossible for people to get back and forth in places. So yeah, I think it's a good topic to look at again. We've got a history out on the coast of opening up properties. When we were the Bodega Bay Fire Protection District, it really was a burden. And because we simply couldn't cover it. Now, fortunately, in our consolidation, which is working incredibly well, the county recognized that, and the county is subsidizing us, and that's how we've added staff and added equipment and added depth, so that the public safety does not suffer that much. But we do have to figure out, when it gets crowded out here, how do we get to places from our perspective, but also let's just protect the quality of the entire enterprise out here. And that's what we call carrying capacity discussion. And if y'all want to have that discussion will involve us from the public safety perspective, state parks. There's a lot of stakeholders in this, including all the environmental groups, that ought to be brought into a discussion about how do we manage the density of people who come out here when they come out here. We all know the crisis, the worst crisis was during COVID, and there's just no way. July 4th became every day almost. And so thank you for the question. That's not an answer, but I'm just saying it's not just simply focus on the traffic. That's but one element of it. It's a much deeper problem.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chief. Are there any other questions on items not on agenda? Yes, Carmen.
Carmen Estrada, I can't resist it after that discussion in terms of traffic coming in. Now, we love tourists, some of us not so much, but we have to open up the coast to the public based on the law, essentially. And those of us who live here are very fortunate. On the other hand, we want the county to take into consideration how many people do we keep encouraging to come out here, what with, what is it, the Champion, I forget, the various branches that have opened up. Thank you. That are now going to be public places. We have a Jenner also having a lovely public area. And as you know, there's some plans over on Estero Ranch. Now that's crazy. I'm sorry. But to open Estero Ranch through Bodega Harbor for the public to come through a residential area to go into they're planning a 5-mile walk area. And they're planning to have all sorts of great things that are free 365 days a year. I think that's unsustainable. And we would like the fire district and others to join us to say, please rethink this. It's not really a great idea. We have lots of the public's coming out here for many, many other reasons. I'm sorry about Estero Ranch. They bought a landlocked property. Their landlocked property is on the other side of Estero Americano. It can be a beautiful preserve. It can be left in perpetuity, open to, for its beautiful view. They can bring in small groups of people like they currently are, based on a lawsuit that ranchers brought, prohibited Estero owners from using Estero Lane. And please rethink this. And we want your support on this. I know the county is very interested because the county assisted in buying this property. And it is 547 acres that's sitting there. And they want to open it up to the public, but they need their own interests. They can enter from the coast. They can bring people in other ways. They can negotiate with the owners at Bodega Harbor to bring in some small groups like they have with the Estero Lane. But it is really a problem to have so many people come in, double park in a residential area, and just essentially create litter and all the things that you don't want, the bad news about having open our area to the outside. But the good news is we do want to share our area with others. And we want the best way to do that. So please keep that on your radar in terms of the Estero Ranch, trying to open up the access through our area in Bodega Harbor through Short Tail Gulch. We really oppose that.
Thank you very much. All right, so any other comments on items not on the agenda in the public in the room? Thank you. Debbie, is there anybody online?
If you are participating by Zoom and would like to make a public comment on an item that's not on tonight's agenda, now is the time to raise your hand. I see none.
All right, thank you. So we'll close the public comment period for items not on the agenda. So at this time, we're going to move on to the discussion about AT&T. And we put the items not on the agenda before these main discussions because we know that some people come to hear Supervisor Hopkins and to hear the staff report and for that comment period. We would love to have you all stay. We're not going to be offended if you choose otherwise. So regarding the AT&T discussion, I read all this material. I read the article in the newspaper this morning. I've read the Board of Supervisors letter, and I went over the application loosely, the AT&T application. I'm going to ask, is anyone in the room not familiar with AT&T wanting to vacate the landlines as carrier of last resort? All right. Said. Debbie, could you help us with a brief?
Yeah, so, AT&T is the carrier of last resort for part of the coastal zone, Frontier being the other. I'm not aware of another carrier, or you not? No. And carrier of last resort basically means that in some areas of our coastal zone, we obviously don't have cell reception, we don't have cable options. And, copper is really the only way for many people to communicate and get word out when, in general, and then especially when power goes out and say the cell towers go down, copper lines have literally been a game changer, a lifesaver, for a lot of our rural communities. So with AT&T stepping away from or trying to step away from their responsibilities for maintaining copper lines, that then means that at the very least, people will not be able to call line. I would, something that's in the documents there and that I would caution the CMAC to talk about and think about is also the precedent of if the CPUC approves AT&T's actions, what then will be the actions of Frontier that provides the service to the rest of the coast. So that's kind of the quick and dirty on what AT&T is proposing. And it would be the death knell to copper lines on their coast.
So I got an email from a resident here that said something along the lines of what AT&T is trying to do is something they've done in like 25 other states, which is stop carrying the hub-to-hub communications over copper and to switch that into being a satellite-based system whereby the non-local portion would not be copper, but that the communities was going to be
capillaries.
Was going to be
The
yes,
capillaries.
capillary, that's the word I was looking for.
Mhm.
Was going to be copper. So I literally just got this email like 15 minutes ago, so I haven't really had time to process it. So I mean, as a back in my past days, I was an electrical engineer, and so I appreciate the availability and status of being able to use satellite technology for this kind of thing, because maintaining copper over long distances is very, very expensive. So I guess at this point, without having some representative of AT&T to explain this to us, I mean, I think it is somewhat, from their perspective, without sort of when they're applying to this PUC about this, without sort of talking to communities and seeing what is going on. I mean, I'm hesitant to give them the benefit of the doubt, because they're AT&T and they do bad things. But I mean, in like, I suppose there is a possibility that maybe it's not as nefarious as we may have suspected.
And I will say that AT&T was invited to this meeting.
Yeah.
And refused.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't want to spend time with us this evening.
We're not even served by AT&T.
So
You might be Frontier where you are. We're
they can pay
AT&T.
Annapolis.
And the precedent is also.
Yeah.
You're AT&T? Annapolis is.
And it's totally likely that if AT&T prevails, that Frontier will be
Yeah,
right
we'll do the
behind
same
them.
thing, yeah.
That's the big concern. The other issue that, as I read through these documents, AT&T is soft stepping this. They're not saying they're not applying to ditch landlines immediately. They're applying to quit receiving the federal funds that offset the bills, which then put them in a position to no longer have to deal with the landlines. So they're kind of soft stepping it. And I do believe that the bigger picture here is, as Che has mentioned, as Jill has mentioned, is the precedence that this will occur if this application is allowed to go through. Our Board of Supervisors has written a hefty letter asking, well, saying they reject the application that AT&T submitted. And they have sent, our supervisors have sent that letter to our state representatives. In this process, I learned that AT&T, all of our phone service is more state regulated than federal regulated. That was of interest. Carolyn, do you have anything else to add at this time to this?
I don't have any phone service.
Oh, you don't have any?
Frontier has, like, we were out for 3 weeks and calling customer service, they offshore customer service, so they have no clue as to where you are or what the issue might be. And I talked to a technician that I saw on the road, and I couldn't actually ask them to do anything because it has to go through all of their little ticketing and process. And it doesn't seem to me that they have a lot of communication within their company.
And that's Frontier, that's very good to know.
Can I ask you a question? Are they still charging you?
Yeah, well,
For the
that was,
service.
yeah, actually, that's also part of the problem, is they're still charging me. The phone has gone out and there's no one to talk to. There's no one home to actually say, and you go through the bot online and they have no idea. And you can't call 911 from, I mean, I guess you can via internet service, but that's like all you can do. But if you have to call a doctor, you want to call on-call nurse or something like that, you cannot do that.
Call your congressman.
Well,
They can make-
yeah, but hopefully, but it doesn't solve it in the short term.
No, they call Frontier and say, what's this? In the post office, it was known as a congressional, and it moved mountains.
And I can speak to that as well. So
Okay.
constituents reach out to me with the same issues, especially with Frontier, and I send them directly to Hoffman's office right now. Because
Okay, well, that's what
they
we'll
have
do,
a much
because
better
it's been,
relationship.
it's been an ongoing, that's like for 2 months.
That's their job.
When there's public comment.
When there's public.
Can you get a copy of that letter?
It's in your packet.
Of
It's
the
in your-
supervisor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Abby, do you have any questions or statements on this? Jill, anything else?
No, I just support the action of the supervisors. I support retaining those landlines. I think they're essential. What I wasn't quite sure what you were saying about that they want to switch to satellite, but I have satellite and a landline, and when the electricity, when power goes out, I have no satellite. So the landline is my connection.
Right. So again, this was an email I got 20 minutes ago, so I don't know, but my understanding was that they wanted to keep the local, so the capillaries was going to continue to be copper, and that they were going to have it. They were going to beam the service in to some like hub at somewhere in each community. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know if that's going to be powered or how that's going to work. So I mean, without having somebody from AT&T here, I don't know what that means.
So it would be important to find out if they have plans for generator backup if the power
Yes.
goes out. That
Yes.
would be
Must.
essential
Well,
piece
if
of
they're the
it.
carrier of last resort, then I don't care how they do, if it's satellite or just back, whatever, they gotta have a line there at your house.
Having talked to AT&T's representative about this issue, that was not clearly delineated. Basically, what was said was, we'll find what works for each area. Yeah.
What was that, Jay?
We'll find what works for each area. Which
This
is,
is what AT&T was
which is,
said.
once again, when power goes out though.
We may or may not find what works in.
Yeah.
I would like to suggest, just as been discussed here, please, please, please write your state representatives, your local and state representatives. Congressman Hoffman, that's an excellent place to start. I think this is the only way we're going to keep this from being a bigger problem than it already is.
And if I may suggest, Chair, also your state assembly member and state senator.
Yes, state assembly and state senators. So do any of the MACs have any other comment on this issue? Okay, the public, I'd like to offer the public an opportunity to comment on the AT&T issue.
Hi again.
Yes. Steve Herzberg, Deputy Chief.
So what I'd like to do is take this discussion from a discussion of AT&T up to a 20,000 foot level and not focus so much on the status quo and holding the status quo, but really talk about what we need out here, what we've never had. So everybody who has a bad moment should be able to pick up some form of telephone and dial 911 and get to dispatch. That's the basic problem. We do not have that out here now, even with the status quo of copper lines, right? So if we focus on holding on to the copper lines, we're actually missing the much bigger picture, which is that for years, there have not been reliable telephone service that we can all use. And I want to talk about that because that was something that the Bodega Bay Fire Protection District faced, and now we're facing the Sonoma County Fire. There's simply pockets of this coastal area where nothing works. So let's just take a few of those examples. A lot of people come out here as visitors. There's no copper wiring in a lot of the vacation rentals, and they're not bringing copper wiring out with them. They're bringing cell phones. And people who rent out here think that if they have an emergency, they'll be able to pick up whatever cell phone works in the city, and that they'll dial 911 and they'll be able to get the dispatch, and they cannot. Neither Verizon nor AT&T, I don't know T-Mobile, but I've not found a carrier out here on the coast where my phone, which has both a Verizon and an AT&T chip in it, it's a dual phone, so I've got both services. There are places here where neither work, and guess where one of those is? It's the firehouse. So there is not sufficient copper interface out here right now, that if that's our goal, which is to hold on to copper, no matter what, that we can say we're a safe community. Now, one of the things that AT&T is talking about is replacing copper with fiber. And I do believe that there are areas in Bodega Bay where they've already done that. I'm pretty sure a big part of the harbor at one point in time years ago, they laid some fiber, not for the phone service per se, but they're trying to bring UVerse in as a competitor to Comcast. And so there's fiber out here, but that fiber has not been, I think, fully implemented. There was a time not too long ago when there really was not a reliable AT&T tower out here. They went up on the golf course. I think they traded off to Singular. Some of you remember that overnight, the Singular service popped up, AT&T disappeared. Then that tower went dead. And then there was a negotiation with the harbor a few years ago because Chief Grinnell and I went to emergency services in the county and said, you've got to help us get that back. And then they made a deal with the harbor and that tower is back up and running. But even with that tower back up and running, it's not really working. If we rely on cell phones, you're relying on cell towers. And what's happened with the cell towers in times of emergency, there's a big debate about how much battery backup or generator backup they must have. And 72 hours, I think, is the predominant right now. That's not a lot. For those of us who went through the, yes, windstorms, which are a major danger out here, when we went through the recent storms, we were without power in my house for more than 3 days. So here's what happened. We used voice over internet protocol in the house. AT&T cell doesn't work. Live in the harbor, line of sight to that tower, it does not work. So we used voice over internet protocol, which is good phone service so long as the internet works. I've got battery backups for my in-house modem. So even though the power went out, my modem stayed power until guess what? Their tower went out. And once the internet lost its 72-hour backup, everybody lost their phone service in this area. So what we're looking at is a much bigger communications picture. If we want everybody to be able to, in their worst moment, get a hold of dispatch, we've got to look at making sure that whatever they promise us, Shay, whatever their best means is powered in a way that's realistic for this area. You know, as a lowly populated area, it is unreasonable for us to expect the same level of response and service as a much more populated area. Although I will say PG&E did a really good job. When we got slammed, they were out here cutting trees. They were working with us on the streets every day. So I guess my message is this is a long-term problem. The solution is not just to beat them on withdrawing the copper. That may not be the ultimately good solution. I kind of wonder how many people here actually have copper. A lot of people don't, and a lot of people have relied totally on cell phones. And I can promise you that most of the visitors that come out here rely on their cell phones. So I guess what I'd like us to do is take a higher level look. This is a long-term problem we've had on the coast, all the way up the coast. That's one of the reasons, by the way, we have such robust ham radio presence in our emergency system. That's why from Timber Cove all the way down, Sea Ranch down, we have more registered ham radio operators, I think, on this coast than any community anywhere. Is because we recognized very early that none of these things work when ham radio does. That just doesn't help because not everybody's gonna carry a ham radio. So I just wanted to give that historic perspective that if we view this battle as making them keep the copper here, you're arguing for a status quo that does not work. It's not working right now.
Thank you very much for that perspective. You educated me. I'm sure that everyone here has.
If they have any questions about it, or we've been facing this, because we want you to be
Please.
able to get hold of us.
Yes.
You know,
I was gonna say that the telephone is a cell phone is like a communication device. It's not considered a telephone, like your telephone in your house is, it's what it is, but the cell phone is not, they're not considered the same thing.
I don't know that, but yeah, you reminded me of something, and Chase, I want to pick up on that, which is some of the carriers now are making deals with satellite companies. Someone made a deal with Starlink. And someone else is going to make a deal. I think T-Mobile may have made the deal with Starlink, where you're now going to be able to have your phone run up to a satellite and back down.
For texting, I think.
Pardon me?
For texting only.
For testing only, but that's their ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Because those satellites don't go down. You still have to be able to charge your phones. There's all this stuff you really ought to be thinking about, even today. Even today, because even with what we have, if you let your phone go down because you don't have power, you don't have a generator, then you're still not gonna be able to call us. And, that's a big concern to us. We want to be able to get to it.
Any other questions for?
No, I'd like to, I've lived out here since 1984, gone through a lot of outages, and finally, this last outage, I finally have a system that I had phone service through the Wi-Fi, through the Starlink, and I kept the Starlink charged because I have a little Jackery battery, and there's a jack, and I also have a Honda generator. To put the Honda generator on to keep my refrigerator going for the day when it runs out of gas. I also am charging my Jackery at night. But the Jackery is always powered. The Starlink is powered by the Jackery, and I did not have 1 minute where I couldn't use Wi-Fi calling. I felt very safe. I felt very secure. It was the first time since 1984 that went through an outage, and a prolonged outage, without losing connectivity. So,
What that system is, and it's a good system, I've got Starlink up in the Northwoods of Wisconsin. It's incredibly reliable. I didn't want to mention it, but it does work. And I do the same thing. I've got something called Echo Flows. They're big lithium batteries that you charge up. It'll run my refrigerator for a day. I've got some smaller ones that my internet is run on. I can charge my phones on it, get some lights on it. I've also got a generator, which I don't fire up because I can live with it. But the key to that is that they're going to run down at some point in time. Most of those Jackeries and Echo Flows are good for a day or two, but for us, Comcast went down. Remember, Comcast went down out here, so no matter my modem working or not, whether I had power or not, they went down. Comcast has made a pretty substantial effort out here. When they see the storms coming, because when we were Comcast at the firehouse, and during Kincaid, Comcast went down for a while out here. We rely on the internet. So we now have Starlink at the firehouse. And we also have a major diesel generator. But we called Comcast, and they actually put a diesel generator down Smith Brothers Road, and they tried to run those nodes. And if you've seen them when they know the storms are coming, whatever that parking lot is by the Birdwalk, you'll see them start lining up equipment to take it up coast to try and stay up. But those are not real solutions. Those are Band-Aid solutions to this much bigger problem, which is trying to get the investment from the people who control our telephones into an area where there are not a lot of people using them. They'll make a lot more money putting 5G in a city then they will bringing that kind of stuff out here. And I think that's where we need to work on the solution, is to make them bring equality of service to all areas that they serve, that we not have a lower level of service, because we have the same needs and same emergencies.
Thank you. Any other questions for Deputy Chief? Okay. Any other questions of the public? Go ahead, Scott.
I've got 3 bars 5G right now.
Oh, good.
Great. Something about, maybe a little yellow light about AT&T, what you brought up about them doing satellite link ups. Right now they have fiber. And Frontier goes through AT&T fiber. So that puts Frontier at risk if they stop lighting up
interesting.
that fiber. Just a yellow light. Then I wrote something, I wasn't gonna read it, but it underscores what you were saying. When we first moved to the coast, we had no landline service. We had to drive to a payphone, a 25-minute round trip. Our HOA installed copper and asked Continental to provide landline service, which they did. That telephone service ownership has changed many times. Copper phone lines have not fared well in the salt environment, and connectivity has suffered intolerably. Outages extend for days and weeks at a time. Fortunately, for some, cellular service has become reliable. Many have dropped landline service entirely. We have. So if AT&T wants to shed their responsibility for universal telephone service, they must first provide reliable, universal cellular service. Everybody, everyone must be able to call out, to be social, and to beckon help. Payphones are no longer. When cellular service is ubiquitous, only then should copper landline service be allowed to be abandoned, only then.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments on the AT&T issue from the audience? Okay. Debbie, online?
If you have any public comments and you're attending by Zoom, please raise your hand. There are none.
Thank you, by the way, Scott. I appreciate your comment. Okay.
Do you know what the timeline is on the decision?
Debbie actually had some interesting information on that.
What was
The timeline on the decision for the,
So I was doing some reading and they're saying that the CPUC will rule on this within the year. So it's a pretty long, it's not coming up anytime soon.
Okay, thank you.
so there's no comments online. Any other comments at all from the attendees? All right. Well, thank you very much for your participation tonight. I'm grateful for everyone that came.
Adjourn.
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Adjourned.